thank you, and hello. Or as we say in Hamburg, moin. My name is Campe, and this is called Say Something. When I was 16, I had a boyfriend called Alex. He was a few years older than me, and he always knew everything. I was so impressed. Alex, you always know everything. How do you do it? He just laughed and said, I don't know everything. But if you make your point with confidence, people will not put you into question, because they will think, well, if she's so sure, she's probably right. I must have forgotten about this piece of advice, because a few years later at art school, when I had to introduce myself in front of a group, I suffered a particularly embarrassing moment. After that, I decided that I want to be able to speak in front of large audiences. I didn't want to be one of those women who gasp, I would die, when asked to present. After I had made that decision, I looked for opportunities to practice. I started with short Petra Kucha talks like this one in Hamburg in 2013. Then I had myself invited to art schools where I told students about my path to being a freelance lettering designer. And finally, I spoke at large design conferences in front of several hundred people. I don't just give talks because it's fun or because I enjoy the spotlight or to show my work. I give talks to take up space and to address issues I find important and to be an example. Because if I had seen someone like me when I was younger on a stage, it would have encouraged me. And it still encourages me to see other queer people on stage. Speaking of encouragement, after my talk at Typo Berlin in 2017, many women came up to me. They were all at different stages of their career, and they all said, thank you, this was so inspiring and encouraging. And I thought, wow, that's so cool. This is important. Lettering is all well and good, but this is important. I said to one of the organizers after my talk, this was so fun, and I really enjoy contributing to having more women on stage. And she said, I wish there were more women who wanted to speak. But the reality is this. We contact 10 women who we would love to see on stage. 9 of them will immediately say, no way, I would die. The 10th woman might be persuaded, but only if we work on her for weeks. And we don't have time for that because we're organizing a huge conference. So with this in mind, here's my call to action for you. If you have the slightest ambition of speaking in public, contact the organizers of your favorite event, tell them what you want to talk about, and ask them what you have to do to get on stage. You will probably be well received because people who organize these events are happy for women who take the initiative. I know this for a fact because I organize a festival myself. Berlin Letters is a 3-day event for lettering, type design, calligraphy, and creativity in general. We invite 30 speakers, and I know from experience how difficult it is to balance the lineup. By the way, you are invited to join us in July. If you like Beyond Tellerrand, you will love Berlin Letters. And because we love the Beyond Tellerrand crowd, here's a code for you for your specially priced Berlin Letters ticket. Now back to my point. Back to my point, which I will make with confidence, just like my high school sweetheart Alex told me to. If you think public speaking, that's not for me, think again. I know few women who are indifferent to the fact that women and queer people are still underrepresented in so many contexts. Most women I know find this unfair and frustrating. Being frustrated with something is great because it gives you the energy to work on change. Changing century-old structures takes the effort of many. So when you walk on stage as a woman or a queer person, you're not only doing yourself a favor and the organizers of the event, but also everyone else who sees you as an example. Thank you. This is not the end of my talk. I just had to get this off my chest first. All Things Letters is the name of my studio. This is what it looks like. For the last 10 years, I've specialized in lettering. And this means I draw letters for a living, and I work with text every day. My base material is the alphabet. I start with something like this. And I end up with something like this. These are not fonts that you can type on the computer, but they are custom-drawn words, drawn for a specific purpose. And I draw them in a way that makes the letter form communicate the meaning of the words. Lettering is text and image at the same time. You not only read the word, but you also see it as an image, and you actually see it as an image first. In this way, lettering addresses you both intellectually and emotionally, and that's what makes it so engaging. Whenever I can, I try to link text and image. I want the shape of the letters to convey an idea of the meaning of the words. Here's a real-world example, my second published stamp. It's an official German postal stamp, so you can use it to send your postcards from Düsseldorf. The given subject for this was underwater animals and plants, so I made the word underwater look wavy, as if it was seen through water. Sometimes linking text and image, or linking the letter forms and the meaning of the words, is as easy as that. Most of the time, clients give me the text they want me to design. I have a few examples. This is the title of a book, a travel log of the British writer Robert Byron, who went to Greece in the 1920s. I illustrated words that appeared during the pandemic for the magazine Der Spiegel. I drew this poster for Greenpeace. And if this looks familiar, you're right, I quoted myself. The idea of the wavy letter forms worked well once, so why not use it again? Greenpeace didn't know about the stamp. They contacted me for the poster before the stamp was published, so the similar subject was just a coincidence. But I guess now I'm an expert in underwater lettering. I designed quotes for a literature festival in Hamburg, using some elements of the German Sütterlin script. I drew stickers that promote more bike-friendly cities. Here's another one of those. So most of the time, I draw a given text, but sometimes I get to do more than that. For some clients, I develop the idea, write the copy, and design the lettering. Those are my favorite commissions. This is a mural I painted for a tech company. They were moving into a new office space, and they wanted to have a lettering mural in there. They were 2 weeks away from moving in. No one had the headspace to think of what should be written on that wall. They didn't have a text yet. So this was my moment. The space where this wall is was going to be used for creative workshops, for like coming up with ideas in groups. So I thought about what working in groups and developing ideas is like in a group when it works really well and you cheer each other on. That's brilliant. We should really do that. Yes, and we could also. I wrote this text, painted it on the wall, and everyone was happy. This is another example of work, or of a commission where I wrote my own copy. This is a tool shed on a camping ground by a big lake. So I thought about all things camping by the lake, and came up with one word that wraps all the way around the 4 sides of the container. This is the front. This is the back, and you can see the whole word better when you look at the sketch. The word is Seesternenhimmelszeltplätzchen. So it consists of two words that overlap. Seestern, Sternenhimmel, Himmelszelt, Zeltplätzchen, which means starfish, starry skies, canopy, campground. You probably have to speak German to fully appreciate this. It celebrates the fact that German language allows you to chain together an almost unlimited number of words. Okay, sometimes I get to write the copy for my commissions, but in my personal work for years, I didn't write my own copy. Everything I could think of sounded either too radical or too banal. I solved this problem of not knowing what to say by drawing alphabets. This is the storefront window of my studio. Every couple of months, I paint a new alphabet. And each alphabet has a name. This is the horizontal alphabet. And the whole series is called window alphabets. This is the half-alphabet. If you haven't instantly figured it out, the letters are cut in half, and the lower part is moved over one to the left. So the first letter is an A at the top and a B at the bottom. Second letter is a B at the top, a C at the bottom, and so on. This is the flip alphabet. That's the one that's currently on display. And the alphabets also serve as a kind of curtain, because the room is really small, the window is very big. People will stop and look at me working and be like, oh, look, she's drawing. So I give people something to look at, which is always a good idea. This is the wobble alphabet. I wondered what letters would look like if one side of them was elastic and the other one was stiff. I paint these alphabets by hand. Sometimes I sketch on the inside, and sometimes I just draw guidelines. And the shadows they cast are always a really nice surprise. I like drawing alphabets because it allows me to examine what letters are. The shapes are so familiar, everyone knows them, and then I can go and push these shapes and explore at what point they stop being letters and turn into random graphic shapes. When I multiply the letter forms and stack them vertically, I get these, the forms dissolve and turn into patterns. So this is the pattern alphabet. I developed these ideas in my sketchbooks. I have many sketchbooks with lots of alphabets in them. At some point, I turned them into a book called Alphabets. This book came out in the series 100 for 10. The name is the game, 100 pages for only 10 euros. It starts with lots of A's. It contains many alphabets. Actually 50 different alphabets, very different variations. And it ends at the obvious endpoint. I will have a sip. Before I concentrated on drawing alphabets, in order to avoid having to say something, I created work about things people say, and I thought about the audio-visual qualities of letter forms. For an exhibition in Chicago in 2012, I created a series of collages. This is the largest one. It's 2 by 3 meters. For scale, this is the sketch in my garden in Chicago. I inked large sheets of paper with offset ink, and then I fixed the sketch to the paper and cut it out by hand and glued them all together. And then this is what it looked like on the wall. The other collages in the series were smaller. You always say that. But they all had this really nice three-dimensional quality to them because they were cut from monoprinted paper. You look at this and you hear it in your head. That's what you think. The phrases sound familiar, but they give you so little context that you immediately start to imagine what this is about. Says who? Yeah, whatever. This is what the project looked like installed at A&D Gallery in Chicago. Another early work, I wrote this, and I think I thought of it as a dialogue with only one person speaking, maybe a relationship crisis. I drew this in 2011 when I hardly knew anything about drawing letters. Today, I see how flawed it is. The spacing is really off. There should be a lot more white space between M and E. The letters all have the same width. I used the ruler to make sure that they are all of equal width. And so the L, the E, and the T look way too wide. The round shapes are too small because I didn't know that they need optical corrections. And the slant is all over the place. In short, I wish I could still draw as careless as I did here. A while ago, I was cleaning out the basement of my studio, and I thought about throwing this out. It's more than 10 years old. It's not even well drawn. Why drag it with me through life? But I kept it, and shortly afterwards, I got an email from Julia Mehr. Julia Mehr is a curator at the Museum for Design in Hamburg. And she wrote that I was a key player in letter design and that she would be happy to collect my work. So these drawings, the collages, and some other of my early work are now in the collection of the Museum of Design in Hamburg. And some of them were recently on display. The artist was present. But why? Why this interest in things people say, and why was I so afraid of saying something in my own words? Maybe that's because of my grandma. When I was 21, I was still living at home with my grandparents and my father. During the day, I did an apprenticeship in a bookshop, and in the evenings, I watched TV with my grandparents. But then I fell in love, and I was hardly ever at home anymore. One evening when I was at home, I was sitting in the kitchen reading the newspaper, and my grandma came in. I thought I should probably tell her, so I said, "Grandma, I have to tell you something." She said, "What's wrong?" I'm rarely at home anymore, and there's a reason for that. Well, I've fallen in love, but with a woman. Grandma hesitated only briefly. Then she nodded and said, "Oh, that's what I figured." She walked to the kitchen door, turned around, and said, "But you aren't going to tell everyone, are you?" I don't remember what I thought in that moment. But now I think, what did she have in mind? That I wouldn't tell anyone in our village of 300 people? That I wouldn't walk around with my girlfriend in our small town? That I would marry a man to make it seem normal? Sorry, Grandma. In 5th grade, on the bus ride home, I heard the older boys yell, "Das ist voll schwul." At that age, I didn't know what schwul meant. I didn't know it was the German word for gay. But I knew it was a horrible word, and I shouldn't even think it because it would somehow dirty my mind. I sometimes think everything would have been so much easier if I had known in my childhood in the 80s that Freddie Mercury, Boy George, Elton John, the Pet Shop Boys, Jimmy Somerville, and George Michael were gay. And Happe Kerkeling too. I thought they were just weird. 15 years later, I studied illustration in Hamburg, and I started to get my first commission. I was convinced that to be a professional designer, I have to hide that I'm queer. If people know, they won't hire me. It's just not professional. That was in the mid-2000s, way before capitalism encouraged everyone to market every aspect of their identity. Today, it's a good marketing strategy to tell everyone that I'm queer, and I'll be hired for that. But that wasn't the case 20 years ago. This led to a split in my identity. At art school and at the jobs I held, I was Christine Campe. And in the queer community, I was Chris Campe. After a few years, it became harder and harder to keep these two identities apart. And one day, I talked with a friend, a drag queen, who runs an international market research company. I was really impressed because she held some of her business meetings in drag. So this friend said, Chris Campe, that name has brand potential. So from that day on, Chris Campe it was. Since I started my studio in 2014, I have been very active on Instagram. And by putting in an insane amount of hours and with no strategy at all, I built up a following of 21,000 people. When I hit 10,000 followers, I started to wonder what I should do with this audience. I felt that I should use my reach to address issues that are important to me. But I was afraid of the discussions in the comments, so I hesitated. I thought people would be put off if I shared my perspective. So since I didn't have a solution for this big problem, or this big question, of what to do with my reach, I tackled a smaller problem. On Instagram, I never found GIFs I liked, so I drew my own and put them in a Giphy channel. And in the meantime, because I've drawn so many, I've become a specialist of white lettering GIFs. If you want to use these in your stories about this talk, you can find them by typing in Chris Campe or all things letters in the GIF search. Last summer, I painted this sign to carry to the Gay Pride Parade in Hamburg. It says, "Yes, it's necessary." The sign is visually based on my GIFs. I had noticed that white lettering sticks out well in front of, on top of a darker photo. And I also realized that white letters make a cardboard sign stand out really well. So this analog GIF was the precursor of everything that followed. In January, a team of journalists revealed that members of the extreme right party, AfD, and other fascists had held a secret meeting where they discussed plans to deport 20 million people from Germany because they think they're not German enough. I got really angry. Are you crazy? I went to the first protest in Hamburg. There were 2,500 people. 2,500 people in a city of 2 million? Where was everyone? For the next protest, a week later, I painted this sign. I don't like worn-out language, so I don't like the usual protest sign slogans. And my sign just said, no AfD, no. But because the subject is already so serious and depressing, I added 2 more signs that say, forget about it, no way. And I went to the next protest along with 50,000 other people. This demonstration was canceled because it was so overcrowded. A journalist took my photo and posted it on his Instagram channel. And apparently many people saw this because a week later a friend sent me this. In a small town near Hamburg, she had seen this woman carrying the sign, and she asked the woman, "Where did you get the sign?" And the woman said, "I saw it somewhere on the internet." I was really impressed with how well she copied. I mean, she must be a designer. More people copied my signs, including my sister, who had never been to a protest and just took like a marker and painted my sign. I painted more signs, and I noticed how many words rhyme with D. AfD, scheiß Idee, AfD, alter nee, AfD, so passé. More people copied these signs, and I became a protest sign influencer. Colleagues drew versions of my signs in their drawings. And the style was also adopted for other purposes, like saving a public bath in a small town near Osnabrück. And I have these photos because people send them to me on Instagram. And because I have so many followers on Instagram, I thought, and I was thinking about what can I do with this? I think most people who follow me because they're interested in lettering and design. Many of them probably aren't really political people, but I thought maybe I can grab them by their interest for lettering, make them paint signs and go to protests against Nazis. So I offered a free lettering workshop in the Museum for Design in Hamburg, and I was hoping for, or I invited people who had never been to a protest. The people who showed up were mostly designers who always go to protests anyway, but still, it was a good workshop. And then we met again 2 weeks later and went to the big demonstration. Because people were so interested in my signs, I drew a step-by-step tutorial for my. I wrote a step-by-step tutorial for my blog, and I turned my first sign into a GIF. So the circle closes. Then the Women's Museum in Bonn approached me and asked me if I wanted to create a sign as an artistic contribution to an exhibition about the women's liberation movement in Germany in the last 100 years. Frauenmuseum Bonn, Women's Museum, you never know what they think women are, so I just wanted to make clear, Alice Weidel may not be queer, but trans women are women. And this is now in the exhibition at the museum. Talking about museums, the first signs I made are now in the collection of Haus der Geschichte in Bonn. That's Germany's official history museum, and they collect items that document contemporary history, like protest signs from all over Germany. And the curator, this is when she came to pick up the signs, she just texted me on Instagram, "What are you doing with your signs after the protest?" Because we want them. So yeah, now they're in the museum as a document of history. Then the next thing that happened was that Forward Festival contacted me. Forward Festival is another design conference. They asked me if I wanted to show work at their festival in Hamburg. They also have an exhibition space. They contacted me because they had seen the signs, so I thought I should stick with that format. But again, what should I say? A few weeks before, I had been in an exhibition in Bremen, and I saw this work of Zoe Leonard, an American artist who wrote a poem in 1992 called "I Want a President." And it was, in the museum, it was just a stack of cheap photocopies. Everyone could take one. It's a powerful text. It starts with, "I want a dyke for president." And further down, there's a sentence, "I want to know why this isn't possible." I often wonder about things that are said to be not possible. So at first I wanted to take this sentence and turn it into one big sign and show it at Forward Festival. This is a digital sketch of what it could have looked like. But I wasn't sure about the copyright of the text, and I wanted to use my own words. So I kept thinking about things that I would love to happen, but that are usually said to be not possible. And I wrote a text called Manifesto that consists of 15 sentences that all start with "I wish." Most of them shouldn't even be wishes. I wish I didn't have to say this. I wish speaking up didn't make me the target of haters. I wish I didn't have to be afraid of being raped. I wish I could ride my bike without risking my life. I wish I didn't live in a world shaped by and for men. I wish I didn't have to worry about any of this. I wish it was just a matter of mindset. I'll leave it at this. If you want the full text, come up to me after the talk. I have postcards and stickers. I spent many hours painting this, and I regretted having written so many words. But I wanted to create something that worked both as a text to be read and as something visual for people to engage with and think about their own wishes. This is what the installation looked like at Forward Festival. It was up for 2 days, 3 weeks ago. And it was really fun to watch people interact with it. For years, I didn't really say anything in my work because I didn't know what to say. And I didn't want to expose myself and be vulnerable. But when I finally started to say something, the opposite of what I expected happened. I learned that putting my experience of being in the world into words allows others to see themselves reflected. Telling people what I think and how I feel allows them to connect. I wish I didn't have to say any of this. But now that I do, what was I waiting for? Thank you. Okay, there is a PS. I brought stickers and postcards, like I said. Come up to me if you want them. And I write a newsletter, and that's the best way of knowing what else I have to say every other month. There's more to see on Instagram. There's more to read on my website, and many more gifts. This is it. This is really it. Ciao.